Hey, everybody out there. Welcome, welcome. Gosh, I've been running around and a little out of breath. Trying to make it here on time today. So, if you guys was waiting around on Wednesday, I am so sorry. Unfortunately, I was a little under the weather. Still trying to get my voice back together now, and I had no voice on Wednesday. Completely gone. So, honestly, I just feel happy that I feel a little bit better, a lot better now. So that's really good. So I don't know if any of you guys have been experiencing all the sickness that's been going around in our area where, people are having quite a bit of things happening, flu-like symptoms. So that's one of those things that kind of hit my home. And sorry, just trying to get my camera situated here. I'm a little lopsided, but got it now. So if you guys can hear me and see me okay, just give me a thumbs up, hey, something to let me know that the sound is good and you guys can hear and see. Thanks so much. So welcome. I look forward to having a great conversation with you guys today. It is something that is dear at heart, as I have so many students that go through different things about firearms. And so I felt like I wanted to share some of these experiences in efforts to help you guys make good choices with your firearms and maybe help prevent you guys from having some of the same experiences that others have gone through. So if you don't already know, I'm Mrs. Strubble, and I'm a licensed firearm instructor for DC, Maryland, Virginia area. And in my company, we deal with a little bit of everybody, all backgrounds, people who are beginners, who are expert, people who are service people, you name it. It's quite a bit of people we've done training for over the years, and it's been quite a journey. But some of the things that people have expressed to us after coming to us for different needs, it's like, wow, I cannot believe that happened to you. So realistically, the things that can happen when people have firearms, just even the thought process of having family members and friends view you differently, see you differently because they know you own firearms, is so much that can go along with that. And so I wanted to make sure that you guys had some little, stories and things to kind of try to help you guys stay focused and know which way to move about life when dealing with firearms. So God bless you too. And thank you so much. Jesus loves you right back. I'm a believer. I don't have no shame in saying that. So thank you so much for joining us and staying tuned. So I hope you take good content here and you really like what we're talking about here. I really hope to inspire you and help you stay empowered with firearm use and being safe with it as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump right on into this. So basically, I have a couple of stories to share with you guys. Real life stories. These are real people. So please be gentle in the comments. Don't say nothing too crazy. Please be respectful. I do understand that everybody has their own views and, we feel different ways. And I do respect everyone's views when it comes to those things. But just respect, okay? These are real life stories, by the way. Not making up any of this information. So the first story I'd like to share with you guys is a student who was taking a class for a DC concealed carry permit. She is a nurse working in the DC area overnight in an emergency room. And when it came down to it, she just started the job not too long ago, got familiar with her coworkers a little bit. And they were just having a nice little chatty morning saying, okay, have a good day, get some rest, see you tomorrow night. And so then her co-workers was like, she told them that she's not actually going to go get some rest. She's heading to the range to meet me and do some more training. And they were like, wow, you do firearm training. And they were so excited to share that story with her. She was showing pictures and videos, and they were like, oh, wow, that's really cool. Well, next thing you know, before she was able to go back to work the next day, she got a call from her supervisor telling her to not return back to work right now because someone felt threatened because she was handling firearms. And I thought, wow, that was the craziest thing, because the sad truth about it was she literally did not even own a firearm at the time. She was just getting training so that she can be familiar with it. It just goes to show you how people just really feel so terrible about firearm owners and users. So it's really important for us to be mindful of who we're having these conversations with about us going to the range. And I do see you guys in the comments here. Thank you so much for joining. Hello, hello. And it definitely must have been a Karen there. I mean, honestly, I thought it was just the craziest thing because as she was explaining, there was nobody there that she had any kind of beef with or anything. She really didn't even understand why they would even say that. And again, the saddest part about it is she didn't even own a firearm. She was using my firearms to do training with. And that's the real sad truth about it. Like the fact that a single mom cannot go and learn how to protect herself and her child without being ridiculed by others is just mind blowing. I thought that was just the craziest thing, but it just goes to tell you that honestly, you guys have to be mindful as firearm owners who you're speaking to, and be very particular about having conversations about firearms. And I know the best comparison I can give you is, people talking about politics and people talking about religion. Things like that are very touchy conversations. And this is also one of those ones because you never know who you're speaking to and what their views are. And immediately they go into people who have firearms are trying to unalive people. That's the mindset I feel like that a lot of times people go into. Like immediately they believe that firearm owners are intending to hurt others, and that's not the case. We're literally out there trying to defend ourselves in case we do have someone meaning us harm. That's our point for learning and knowing how to defend ourselves by bearing arms. So just in case anybody out there needed clarification about that. So has anybody out there had any crazy situations happen to you, or people judge you differently because they learned that you are a firearm owner? I'm just curious, was my student the only one that experienced something like that? I mean, I thought that was just really terrible, really terrible. So the next story I want to share with you guys is I had a student who who had gotten their concealed carry permit with us already, did training with us already, and then about not even a year after they had been awarded their concealed carry permit, they went to a bar in the DC area. And in DC, you cannot go to a location that sells alcohol. You cannot go into an establishment with your firearm that sells alcohol, okay? So they already knew that rule. All they did was left their firearm in their vehicle and they went to lunch with their girlfriend and came back out and their car was broken into. All the windows busted out, the firearm was found, and they called the police, did a whole police report, and the police told my student on the scene that their license was going to be revoked because they should have left their firearm at home. I was like, now this was just like definitely a learning curve because it really helped me understand to read the laws very carefully, because if you're reading the DC laws pertaining to transporting your firearm, it does specify that you must transport your firearm to and from a location in which you can actually carry the firearm legally. And I was like, wow, this is definitely something to share with others, because that little minute detail, the fact that the person took the time to store the firearm up safely and lock it away, and then somebody came and actually stole it, the fact that they have some penalty towards that is just crazy to me. Now, I don't know either one of these cases how they ended, in the fact of whether or not this last student was able to appeal and get his concealed carry license reinstated. The other student, I do know that she didn't lose her job. They actually, she was able to get things situated and didn't lose her job. I do know that fact, but I'm not sure what else happened as a result of it. But definitely let me know in the comment section if you guys have experienced anything similar to any of those things. So let's see. Big Dad 444, you said people need to mind their business. You're right about that. Oh, wow. Yeah, I can see how somebody might not like a picture with the AR as well. It's really, again, it's so mind blowing, the fact that people are just automatically assuming you're a bad person if they see you with a firearm, and that's just the craziest thing. Let's see, Heckler, thank you so much for joining again. I'm Mexican American. When I go to the range, people look at me funny. Yeah, okay. Well, I really hope that you continue to go to the range and you continue to just shoot very well. And then you get to a point where you're familiar with the faces that are in there and they're familiar with you. And eventually, hopefully, my hopes is that you would no longer feel out of place. That after that particular time, people start seeing you and you're really a normal face in there, that you and the people who come in there often is going to be very comfortable with you, just like you're going to be comfortable with them. I really hope that that's the dynamic that you'll begin to have with people. So I would encourage you to keep going, and keep practicing. And, once you know your stuff and they see how well you shoot, ain't nobody gonna be questioning you too much. Ain't nobody gonna be giving you side eyes too much. So that's my prayer for you when it comes to that, Heckler. I'm sure it's gonna turn out well. Trust me, you're not by yourself. I'm pretty sure there's others here right now viewing that has those same experiences. I know I have. And I definitely just stay true to keep going to the range and keep getting practice and keep having customers come in. Eventually, people get to know my face and talking to me, and then things is okay. So that's one of those things I would encourage you to keep doing. Now, I have another student who was dating this guy, and he and her were at her home where he had brought one of his kids with him and left them there for a period of time. And while he went and ran some errand, ended up having the child stay there overnight and came back the next day where she was fussing him out. Like, hey, you didn't come back and get your kid. You should have came back and get your kid. Long story short, take your kid and y'all go. So he came, he gets his child and puts his child in the car. His child is not a little kid, it's like a preteen, okay? Just so you guys are clear about that. So the kid is in the car and they're fussing in the house, and he throws something across the room at her head, and he missed, thank goodness. And she's just like, okay, you got to get out. I'm calling the police. You got to go. And he's like, no, 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 I'm not leaving. All this back and forth stuff, right? So finally, she convinces him to leave, and he leaves. And then next thing you know, he has filed a claim on her saying that she pulled out a gun on him. And it's so, so, so terrible because she actually had it on camera. Thank goodness she had camera, right? Well, unfortunately, she wasn't able to use the footage because of, I guess, consent is my guess. I'm really not sure why she could not use the video that she had from her home of this evidence that she did not pull a firearm out on him, even though he described a gun that she does not have. I mean, he described a black semi-automatic gun and she had a silver revolver. And that's the sad truth about it. And she explained to me that all the training through me, through the military, through other places that she's had, always to pull the gun out only if it was necessary. She felt like her life was in danger. And she did not feel like her life was in danger. Sounds like a really terrible situation, and it was, but she didn't feel threatened for her life, so she didn't feel like she needed to take the gun out. She said she never even thought about taking the gun out. But the fact that he knew that she owned a firearm, he made that claim first, and the courts was on his side, and she was trying to prove her innocence. And unfortunately, things did not go her way because she was looking at jail time. And luckily, she had U.S. Law Shield to come and help her and defend her. And they were able to talk down the judge a bit to giving her like a probation period, if you will. So it was like a 2-year period of time in which she had to be without her firearm, and that she could not buy any firearms until that 2-year period of time was over, which was really good because she really needed to be home with her son who had some learning different abilities, and he really need her. And obviously nobody wants to be arrested, period. So really no explanation needed there. But when it comes down to it, it's just one of those things where it's mind-boggling that he described a totally different gun, but yet they're trying to hold on to this story that what he said was true. So I just thought, wow, this is crazy. I'm so sad that she haven't even had to go through this. The fact that, it's it just goes to tell you guys, if you're having a domestic abuse situation or domestic dispute type of situation, that the first one is getting there is the one that's getting the story being sided on, and the other person has to prove their innocence. So anyone out there, if you're going through some domestic violence type situation, please get down in and go ahead and make that report as soon as possible. Please don't wait. Just go ahead and get yourself out of that situation as much as possible. Obviously, a piece of paper like a restraining order is not going to save your life per se, but it will help some legal battles that could happen a little bit later on in life. So I would definitely get the ball rolling with those things if you're out there dealing with some domestic dispute type situations. Anybody else out there dealt with some situations with firearms at home and had to state your claim to the police about that? I'm just really curious, anybody out there like that right now. So when it comes to neighbors, good thing right here to talk about is our red flag law, our yellow flag laws. I don't know if any of you know about those out there already, but there are some states that are red flag laws. There are some states that's yellow flag laws. And so this particular customer lived in a state that was a red flag law, meaning that if I see someone who I think is a possible harm to themselves or possible harm to others, then I can go to the police and make that claim, and the police will do its due diligence and come and confiscate the firearms, do whatever investigation needs to be done. So when it comes to those type of things, yeah, on one side of the fence, this is a good argument to say that this is a good thing, because if you see something, say something. That could have prevented some of our mass shootings, right? Well, on the other side of the fence, in this particular situation, actually was not a good thing, because we had really bad neighbors. That's the problem. So I'm going back to the comments real quick here. I see someone said they were driving with guns while black. Okay, I can see that being a terrible setup there. Yep. And police hate it. You see the cops shoot a dude, taking his gun off him. Oh, yes, James, I did see that. I did see that. And that definitely changed some of my perspective of some of my teachings. I definitely have taught my students to, if you're pulled over by the cops for whatever reason, and you let them know that you have a firearm on them, and you let them know, hey, if you need to get the firearm, my hands is here. You go ahead and you grab the firearm. It's located on blah, 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 blah. You explain yourself, right? Use your words. Don't ever point to, don't gesture to. This is the things that I'm teaching my students. But after I seen this video, if you guys have not seen this video, oh my gosh, this is, the police goes to take the firearm off of the person and shoots the person. By accident, of course. Supposedly, right? But I really think it was by accident. Looking at the video, it does look like by accident. But nonetheless, the person got shot because the police was taking the firearm out of the holster or out of the pants and had their finger on the trigger, obviously. And that is just this terriblest thing, because it's like rule number 1. Don't put your finger on the trigger until you're ready to shoot, right? So that's the thing. I teach people to let the officer take the firearm off of them. Now I'm having second thoughts about that. But in a realistic situation, on an everyday basis situation, it probably is still safer for you to have the officer take the firearm off of the person, only because you don't want to end up shot intentionally because the police officer think you're going to shoot them. So, it's probably still safe practice to let the officer do that. But that was a very unfortunate, sad event, the fact that the officer accidentally shot that person. So let's see. It's a lose-lose no matter what training we have. And I have to agree with you. It's a very sad truth that every situation is very subject to whatever's going on at that moment. So you have to make that judgment call at that moment. But as of right now, I personally can't even use my imagination or any thought process I would ever have to tell you to take off the firearm for the police officer. I don't think that would ever make sense in any scenario. So even having that, that was a fluke situation, I would say. Pretty sure it was 1 in a million chance that something like that would happen, I guess. So I would probably still lean towards letting the officer take the firearm off of you versus the other way around. So ask for a supervisor. You're exactly right there, Global Block 45. You said it, you hit the hammer on the nail. Like, seriously, you definitely hit it. Ask for a supervisor. If you're in a situation like that, you know, hey, I got my firearm on me, but I would like to get a supervisor here. Can you get a supervisor here? And yes, definitely ask for a supervisor. And then you guys go ahead and work that out how they need to work it out. So definitely don't let a rookie cop touch you. That's a good way to put it. So definitely when it comes down to the whole thing about having neighbors, though, that whole red flag law thing, like I said, it's a good thing, the red flag law. I mean, the fact that you see something, you say something. It definitely could prevent a terrible situation from happening in the future, like those mass shootings that we have, right? But on the other side of the fence, who knows what the person is actually saying is actually right, especially if they don't have any evidence, okay? Which in many states, you don't really need necessarily the evidence to prove that a person is a harm to themselves or harm to others. You can go ahead and make the report. So in this case, the report was made. The person's firearm, my student firearm, was taken away from them. And if anybody knew my student, they would have known that this guy is the coolest, calm, collective person you'd ever meet. Like, I don't even know if he ever raised his voice. If he even curses, honestly. That's how cool, calm, collective he is. So the fact that the neighbor thought he was a threat was like, really, come on now. So needless to say, this was a racial tension type of situation. The neighbor was a white person and my student is a black guy, and it was a whole racial situation there. So obviously my student did what was only, obviously you need a medical professional to sign off on that. And then even further than that, a judge needs to sign off on it as well before the police can actually come and confiscate firearms from you. That's the way the yellow flag is operated. So it's one of those things where, damn if you do, damn if you don't, right? So this other situation, I had a student who was 19 at the time. He was completely like on his own, had his own place, own car, own job, taking care of himself. Okay, so he's fully grown 19-year-old dude. Okay, and this was the time where the law was a little bit different, where he actually owned his own firearm, and he was going to the range, and he was coming home from the range, and he got into a car accident where he woke up in the hospital bed, chained to the bed in handcuffs. So he was really confused, obviously. They actually put it in the newspaper and everything too, stating that he was under the influence and he crashed his car into a tree. And it couldn't be further from the truth, because realistically what happened, and that he also had an illegal firearm. That was the other part about that as well. So needless to say, with his job let him go as a result of this. And obviously he had some legal battles to deal with, especially immediately. Thank goodness he also had U.S. Law Shield to help him and help him win this case, because he was able to get his job back and clear his name. Because the real story was that he suffers from seizures, and he actually had his prescription medication in like an Altoid box, because I guess in the past, maybe he dealt with losing prescription medication bottles. Like, the bottles have your name, your address, and whatnot on it. But anyways, nonetheless, that's where he had his medicine, in the Altoid box. And so when they looked through his vehicle, they found medicine in there, and they thought it was, street drugs or something. But it really was a prescribed medication for his seizures, in which he actually experienced having a seizure, and he crashed into a tree. So that's what really took place. So it just goes, and as far as him having a firearm without having a concealed carry permit, that was also the issue. Well, If you know the law, you know you got to be 21 years or older to get a concealed carry. And he was 19, legally owning this firearm at this time. The law is a little different now, so it's a little challenging for 19-year-olds to buy a firearm per se. But at that time, he could. So at least in the DMV area. I'm speaking for the DMV area, okay, you guys? But long story short, he legally had a firearm, but he did not have a concealed carry permit because he couldn't get one. Got to be 21 or over. So it just, I want you guys to know that when we're looking at the media, looking at the news or whatever, please just give them some time to get this story right, because sometimes they hear things, they see things, and they don't really know the full facts of it, and the story comes out being a little bit different about a week or two later. So always give it some time. Watch for that development of the story. Don't always believe the first things that you guys are saying and take that and run with it, basically. It's what I would always tell you guys, especially pertaining to firearms, because you'll find that the story usually gets twisted just a little bit more than what they initially put out there. So have you guys experienced any crazy situations like any of my students? I'm really curious, because at the end of the day, I know that they're not alone. And I really hope that these stories have really helped you guys to be mindful of the situations that could possibly happen out there. That this can prevent you from making some of them same mistakes, like specifically going to and from a location in which you can carry a firearm. So locking it up in your car may not be the best bet, especially depending on where you are. Okay, so specifically DC, to and from a location in which you can legally carry a firearm. Okay. And unfortunately, if you decide that you need to make a little pit stop or something like that, don't go to a place that sells alcohol, right? So when it comes to the fact of knowing, you know, with the knowing that you need to go ahead and make that claim for domestic abuse situations, definitely go ahead and make those claims, because you could definitely save your life and save you a hassle later on down the road. I'm just so glad that majority of my students who's had these situations did have legal protection to help them fight a lot of their legal battles there. Because honestly, the mind-boggling part about the student who had the domestic abuse with domestic situation with her boyfriend, she forgot that she had legal protection. She forgot she had U.S. Law Shield. And she called around and asked for lawyers, and the lowest price that she was quoted was $7,000 for a lawyer to represent her. And she said the average price was about $10,000. So, but the lowest price was $7,000. But then she remembered that she had U.S. Law Shield, and she called them and didn't have to pay a penny more. She had been paying her monthly dues with them for the past 2 years, I think, and she forgot all about it. And thank goodness she didn't have to pay a dime for them to represent her and help her. And thank goodness it really did keep her out of jail, and for having to not pay as much money for having a lawyer on retainer. So if you guys don't have legal protection and you own a firearm, you out here living wrong, you better get it right. You got to get it right, because you need to have that legal protection. You never know what's going to happen, and you have to use your firearm or pull it out. And when it comes down to it, it's better to have that legal protection already situated, because trying to find a lawyer that is specialized in that, trying to find a lawyer that's going to be in good price range is probably going to be very difficult to do. So definitely having legal protection is going to be number one key thing you need to have. Now, companies like U.S. Law Shield, for example, they don't just cover for firearm use, though. They do cover for self-defense. So even if it's not a firearm that you're using to defend yourself, they're still going to cover you. So I really hope that you guys have a great evening. I'm going to wrap this up here, and I'm just so excited that I got my voice a little bit where you guys can hear me. Good. I really hope that you guys all stay healthy and well, and I will see you again next week for another great discussion. And I pray that this has definitely helped you guys as well to know what to do if you're in any type of scenarios like this. So look forward to seeing you guys again next week, and you guys have a great night. Thanks for joining.